Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Sunday Morning Quarterback. We are a podcast of three pastors who love ministry, leadership, and sports. Today, we have such a special episode with our fellow pastor, Russell Dixon, former Major League draft pick, on with us today. Baseball player, now turned to pastor. Adam is licking his wounds today as his Braves took a hard L. Adam, how you feeling today?
I am licking my wounds, but you know what? Carolina Blues behind me, and my wife's balls knocked off the pod, so I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good.
Nice. Now, Dad, many would suspect Dallas lost last night, but we feel good, don't we? We feel good about where we're at.
I feel good. I saw our team battle. We can get our number one quarterback back, silence all those critics, and I think we're ready to take out the Lions and the Bears and go on another run.
Awesome. Well, very cool. Hey, today's a special episode because we have somebody that knows a little bit about sports and ministry. And so we have a friend of mine, Russell Dixon, who I've come to know pretty well over the past 2 years. And just to give a little disclaimer, Russell, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were a Major League draft pick. You were an outfielder. You played at Auburn in college. What year were you drafted?
I was 7th round pick in the 2007 draft. So if you follow sports, that was the year that year after the Astros had signed Carlos Lee. And so the Astros actually didn't pick until the 3rd round that year. And then so that would have made me their 5th overall pick. And then they didn't sign their 3rd or their 4th rounder. So in terms of guys that actually signed and got to camp, I was the 3rd overall pick that actually signed and got to camp. So
awesome. Very cool. Well, hey, what we're going to do is we're going to pick your brain a little bit on playoff baseball. So I want you to know that up front so that you can understand the opinion of somebody who's been there and seen it. And then on the back end, we're going to talk a little bit about ministry and leadership, and Russell's going to share a little bit about his baseball and ministry journey. So, fellas, let's jump in. Russell, I'm going to start with you. Wild weekend in the major leagues. Your Astros are hanging in there. Adam's Braves took a hard L. We saw the Yankees game, a wild one last night. What is your reaction so far to the most recent outcomes in the MLB playoffs?
Well, I think it's just a reminder of why postseason baseball is awesome. This is my favorite time of year, period, for all the reasons. You've got playoff baseball, you've got college football, basketball is about to start. So I've loved seeing some of the upsets, seeing the Padres win. Even though I am a bias to the Astros, I grew up loving the Braves. So I was bummed to see them lose, but it's also fun and exciting seeing new teams take on steam. So it's been exciting so far, and I'm looking forward to the next couple weeks.
Very cool. All right, Adam, give it to us. What happened to the Braves?
Well, let me just remind our listeners that the Atlanta Braves are the reigning World Series champion, and I'm going to say that while I still can.
True.
And I'm not one to make excuses, but there's something that stood out to me very plainly after Atlanta lost and then the Dodgers lost. The MLB recently reformatted how they do the wild card. And so the Dodgers and the Braves had an entire week just sitting around. And baseball, probably more than any other sport, is about rhythms. Mm-hmm. And so you've got these guys who have been playing. They played 160 games over 6 months with almost no breaks except the All-Star break, which is just a few days. And then you've got a week off. And so the Dodgers have one of the best records in the history of the sport, and they got spanked. And so I think that played a major factor. I'm not, making an excuse to say, I want to give credit where credit's due. Philly looked excellent. San Diego deserves everything they've got coming. But I think that was a major factor. But again, I'm still enthusiastic. The Braves locked up a few of their good young stars in long-term contracts over the last several weeks. So chop on.
Hey, Russell, I'm going to come back to you real quick because, we're just casual fans. We watch with our eyes. But as somebody who's been at high-level baseball, what is the factors that separates, take us behind the curtain a little bit. Like when you watch, what do you see?
I think it's just the people that can tune out the pressure of the moment, and really, obviously they know it's a game that's bigger or as big as any they've played in their life. But just, that the beauty of, like Adam was saying, of baseball is you play so much that at that level, the difference in good and great are the ones that can, treat it where it's almost just like another game. It's another at bat. It's, it's not that you're flippant about it, but that you don't allow the pressure to get you in that way. And then just the ones that can execute and do the simple things, instead of going up and trying to hit a home run, continuing to focus on having a good at bat. I mean, that was one of the big things is, I tried to focus on having quality at bats, trusting the more quality at bats that I had, eventually, hopefully the results would be there. And so that's what I see in the postseason, those guys that can just continue to focus on those things that have made them successful all year and tune out the pressure. That's what helps them succeed. So,
Russell, let me ask you a question, because this is something that I've been thinking for about 10 years. And a lot of it is being a victim of the here and now, where baseball has fallen to, I don't want to say it's second. It may be third in some categories as far as viewership. But I've been thinking for the last 10 years or so that I think baseball would do really well to shorten their season. Now, I know for baseball truists, those who love history, that'll never happen. And I get, the reasons for that. But back in 2020, during the pandemic, they had that shortened season. And I've just always thought, like, if the Braves lose 10 games, emotionally, that's the equivalent to my football team losing one game. So you factor in that, there's not enough emotional investment in it. There's not as much hype around the rivalries and that kind of thing, because you play each other so often throughout the year. Why do you think baseball, amongst other reasons, maybe than that we're in a fast-paced culture, why has it fallen behind the buck from what used to be the number one sport, hands down?
I think it's a lot of what you said. It's just such a long season and there's a game every day. So that's part of it. And then also, I mean, to be honest, like, if you don't like baseball, it's not a very exciting sport to watch. Like, there's a lot of dead time there, and they're talking about instituting rules with the pitch clock and all that to speed the game up. And so there's some level of it that you have to have an appreciation for it to really like it. And so, like you said, the baseball truist likes that, but as far as viewership of the games, it's harder. I also think this is, I mean, the fall down of the steroid era, I think, has played a big part of that. You had, yes, they were taking performance enhancing drugs, but it was also the height of the offensive era. I think having high scoring offensive games is good for the game. I'm not saying steroids are good for the game, but I do think having high scoring, exciting offensive games is good generally for the game. Cause I mean, it's like that whole phrase around that time that Mark McGuire and all them were saying, they all had the shirts that say "Chicks dig the long ball." I would say it's not just chicks; it's everybody digs the long ball. And so I think that all of those things factor into it. You just lack of appreciation for it, and then just the pace and all of that as well. So
yeah, because I remember growing up, and at least 15 of the major stars were household names, and now it's like, and you hear this often, like Mike Trout could walk around Los Angeles and he barely get noticed, if noticed at all. So it's so different than when I was growing up. But yeah, I agree with you. I think the institution of the DH in both leagues will help that. But yeah.
Well, hey, we'll make our preacher picks here in a minute, and we'll all get to project out how we think the MLBs is going to shake out. So, Dad, you'll get to make your picks in there, too, and pour a little salt on that Braves win. But, Dad, I'm going to come to you. Let's switch to football real quick. Dad, what was something that stuck out to you this weekend? College, NFL, what caught your eye?
Well, I thought there was a lot of good college games. Seeing Utah come back and win against USC, that was a great game. Of course, good old Rocky Top, Tennessee.
Yes.
That was a game for the ages. And, being here in Nashville, that was a big deal. They actually had people after the game getting their tractor, hooking them to the trucks and having their neighborhood jump on the tractors and ride around the communities. That was what was going on around here. So that was a big, big game. And of course, the Bills, they're looking strong. I think they're going to get better and better. They got some injuries, but they still managed to pull it all together, and they played some great defense. So they're going to be a tough out. Tampa lost, Green Bay lost, Rams, they're not looking too good. So on the NFC, it's a toss-up. And Philly, they look good against my Cowboys. They battled the Cowboys did, but Philly looks good. So things are clearing up for the non-traditional powers to kind of take it all the way. But they're going to run into Buffalo, Kansas City. That's going to be tough. So there's a lot going on for sure.
And that's same could be said in college. And I'm gonna hop in real quick, Adam, before I pass it to you. But shout out Tennessee, man. For 15 years, you have never been able to win the big game. And man, what's his name? Hendon Hooker. He played a great game, man. They were testing their corners all day. They were challenging them. Alabama's secondary is clearly not what it has been in the past, but they played a great game. Now the question is, can they do it again versus Georgia in Athens in a few weeks? Or can they solidify themselves? Because Georgia's looked pretty shaky this year. We've all talked about their easy schedule, so that's the one around here everybody has got their eye on, and people are starting to get a little – Georgia fans are starting to sweat a little bit. Adam, what stuck out to you this weekend in the football world?
Yeah, obviously what you've said. Rocky Top, Tennessee. It's great. And my wife was celebrating. I was driving back from the game at Liberty, and I had it on the radio, and then I actually pulled over on the highway at night to see that field goal. So that was amazing. Other than that, not a lot of things stood out, and I'll show my bias once again. The Tar Heels beat Duke. And I don't care if it's basketball or football or badminton or rowing, any day the Tar Heels beat Duke, which is very often, is a great day. So we're ranked 22 now, and I'm happy about it.
That's funny. Russell, I won't rub it in that your Auburn Tigers have been struggling a little bit this year.
Yeah, struggling.
I'll transition us to our Preacher Pick segment. We're shifting gears all over the sports landscape. Let's talk football, or let's talk baseball, and then I'll pass it to you guys, and y'all can throw in a little NBA too. Russell, give us your predictions on how you think the MLB playoffs are going to shake out. What do you see?
Obviously I got to pull for the Astros regardless. So, and I think that their pitching staff and offense. I mean, they swept the Mariners with Altuve being, a little cold at the moment and not seeing the ball great. So I think that that's a good sign. So forget the partiality towards them. I still think that, unless they fall apart, they'll make it to the World Series. And then I'm torn between the Padres and Phillies because they're both hot at the right time.
Yes.
I think if I had to guess right now and go with my gut, I'm actually going to go with the Padres. I don't know why. Just the saltiness that they have, that Machado, Soto, just kind of that grinder. I like that a lot. So I'm gonna go Padres Astros.
Nice. Now, Russell, real quick, you came up in the Astros farm system. Did they teach the trash can hitting thing back then when you were?
I was long before the trash can era. Let it be known. Although I was teammates with Altuve for two seasons, and
Nice.
I know he's gotten a bad rap for all that, but I can personally attest to he is a world-class guy and one of my favorite teammates. Forget the kind of player that he is, but just one of my favorite teammates that I've ever had. And he loves the Lord. I don't know enough about the decision process where he may have been involved in that. And, I know, but I still, even if he did do that, I still believe wholeheartedly that he loves the Lord. And, if he was a part of that, it was just a bad decision that, didn't think about. So, but yeah, it's I was pre-trash can, although I probably could have used a trash can. I would have lasted a lot longer in their system if I had some trash can help around me.
That's hilarious. We'll come back here a little bit because I definitely have a few questions I want to pick your brain on about playing at that level. Real quick, Adam, MLB playoff outcome. NBA starts tomorrow. Real quick, what are your Preacher picks?
Yeah, it's hard for me to not think that the Phillies are going to win the World Series because I watched them run through my Braves. But yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with San Diego because you have to think. I don't know if any of you watched those games, but those games, their home games, weren't really home games. They had so many Dodgers fans in the stadium, and to knock off a roster like that with a record like that, I think they've got all the confidence in the world. So I see them advancing, probably meeting Houston. And I like Altuve too. I always have, and probably the reason is we're the same height. So I think it's. I just think.
Hey, Adam, you're taller. I promise. Whatever that program says, it is not right. I promise. I used to joke with him and say, "Don't sneak up behind me in the locker room," because if he came up behind me, I'd turn right around and just miss him because he's like this tall.
Yeah, and then the NBA starts tomorrow, and it kind of always creeps up on us when it does begin. So I see the Warriors dynasty continuing. I think Curry and the gang are going to come back probably stronger than they were after they won the championship, because they locked down Jordan Poole for another long contract. They've got all those young guys that weren't getting a lot of run late last year and then into the playoffs. So, I see the Curry era still being with us, and I find them meeting the team that I thought they would meet last year when I picked this is the Bucks. I think it is Giannis on the East Coast and Curry on the West Coast, and probably will be for the next handful of years. And I've got the Warriors repeating, even though Giannis is going to win another MVP. People forget that the Bucks didn't have Chris Middleton last year in the playoffs, and still almost made it to the finals. So I've got Warriors Bucks again this year.
Yep, I agree. I would love to see. I don't know if he could put a whole season together as good as last year, but I'd love to see Joel Embiid get one. As far as MVP talk goes, I'm curious to see about the Nets, how they come and respond to all the noise and everything. And so I don't know, man. I think that Draymond Green, for those out there that saw, he knocked his own teammate out, put him into the wall. And so I think the bad vibe of that, kind of like the whole Tom Brady thing, I think that's going to follow the Warriors all season long. And I think the Bucks are going to reassert themselves. Dad, let's get to you real quick, and let's let you land on the plane on baseball. How do you see the playoffs shaking out?
I'm exactly with the guys. I have fallen in love with the Padres. They're just a fun, resilient team. And, what they did to the Dodgers being up over 20 games, and they looked them right in the eye and took them out. And so I love this. This is the greatest time to be a sports fan. You got the pros, you got NFL, you got Major League, you got college. Basketball starting. This is just a great time to be a sports fan. And I'm excited to see Padres. They're not one of these great powerhouses. They are going to run into a team like the Astros. I think that they'll play the Astros. Astros are a very mature team. They've been there. They've done that. And so they're going to be a tough out. But I'd like to see San Diego get there.
Very cool. Well, hey,
let me say one more thing before we move on.
Go for it.
Jets, Jets.
Oh, yeah.
That's a fun story to watch, too. I watched that game. They totally throttled, a beaten down Green Bay. But, to go into Green Bay and win, that was a big thing. And I'm really starting to like, they got some cool guys on defense. Their QB's got some swag. They got a cool coach. So that's going to be a team to watch in the future.
Not only them, but the Giants, man. The New York teams are back. A lot of people think the Giants may make it to 9-1 because they got a cake schedule. And, of course, Adam, their only losses to the Dallas Cowboys, but we won't talk about that. Hey, guys, let's keep it moving. One of the things about pastors like us, man, we're sports junkies. We're ministry junkies. So we can switch gears real quick. So we're going to switch to our ministry and leadership segment. This is cool because talking to Russell, we kind of get to talk about both. So every time we bring on a pastor, we ask them 3 questions. The first one is, tell us about your family and your church where you're planted. 2, tell us about your sports bias, which I'm sure you have quite a few. And then 3, what is your biggest preaching blunder? Take it away, sir.
So family, my wife, Liz, we met on staff together at Second Baptist Church in Houston, where I served previously. And we have 2 boys. We've got a 3-year-old son named David. And then we've got a son who just turned 2, Drew. And the Drew was a total surprise. We weren't not trying. The Lord just said, here you go. And we were like, oh man, here we go. So we have loved being out here. We are at Sunset Canyon Baptist Church in Dripping Springs. So I served on staff at Second Baptist in Houston for 8 years. My father is still one of the executive pastors there. So Dr. Young obviously is the senior pastor. And then if the church were a business, his role would be similar to a COO. So he does a lot of the operations, logistics, facilities, all of their new campuses they've built. He's overseen all that. So kind of grown up in it. And honestly, I never thought I would end up in it being a PK. But God really just did a radical work in my life through the post-playing days, without going into all the nuances of my story. I came to Christ at a young age, but to be honest, my identity was wrapped up in baseball. And so when I got let go, I had an incredibly difficult time with that, and really ran to alcohol and prescription drugs for a season, and battled that, wrestled that, but finally waved the white flag. And I'm thankful for the spiritual foundation I had, because through family, through friends, chose to go to rehab. It was the hardest decision I ever made, but knew it was the right thing to do, and knew that was the only way I was going to be able to find freedom. And so it was a cool thing for me, because the 12 steps, are all based off of scripture. And Bill W. got sober because he found Christ, and they just have kind of transcended it to make it a little more open-ended. And so for me, that's where all the head knowledge intersected with just the practical things to do. And so that's been a big part ever since I got sober. That's really starting to serve in the church again. That's where the Lord called me to ministry. And so served on staff at Second for 8 years, and early on felt the calling to be a senior pastor at some point, but didn't know what that was going to look like. Knew I needed to grow and gain experience. And then really in the wake of the pandemic, my wife and I just really felt like the Lord was telling us our time to step out was coming soon. And we discovered the church here. We're in the fastest growing county in the country right now. People are moving from everywhere, and it's amazing little church sitting on 15 acres and right on 290 where traffic zips by. So it's been a lot of fun. The church was in a difficult season through the pandemic, limping along, but by the grace of God, we've seen incredible growth in this last season. So yeah, that's just a brief snapshot about church and where we are. And then let's see, sports bias. I guess that's like kind of preference to watch. I'm guessing is kind of what that is.
Yeah. What if they cut you open? What are we gonna see? Who are your teams?
Astros, which is funny because you would think the team that fired me, I would be, yes, they drafted me, but they also fired me. So you think I would be resentful towards them, but I definitely pull for them, especially just with Altuve, having been a teammate and all that. And so I'll always pull for them. Definitely cheer for Auburn. I'm a fair weather fan, to be honest. When they're good, I'm really loud, but when they're not good, I'm just real quiet. So the nice thing about cheering for the Astros and Auburn is you can go blue and orange just depending on who's winning.
That's right.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, right now it's Astros. That's the blue and orange.
Right.
But then when we're doing well, I'll rock the Auburn. So those are probably the main two. To be honest, I don't follow pro football or basketball a whole lot. I do when it matters, but not really until the game time. So
no sweat. You got any preaching blunders?
Oh man, yeah. So I have several. I guess the biggest one was I was telling a story while I was here. It was it was maybe a story in the middle of my message, and I was already it was a message that I prayed through a lot, and I was kind of unpacking biblical stance on abortion, and so I kind of navigated through the heavy waters of that, and I was coming out of that. And I was trying to tell a story. I forget what point it was trying to make, to be honest, but it was a story about a husband and his wife. And the way I told it is I said, a husband, and he called his husband or something like that. And so everyone just died laughing. And I was like, I just leaned into it though. I was like, man, what'd you talk about at church today? Abortion, all the easy stuff. So that was probably the biggest one. I've also had several several places once or twice where I was intending to say a word, but the congregation definitely heard a cuss word, and I was not intending to say it, but it came out that way. So definitely funny. Not as good as the belt story. The belt story from Ben Flanagan is perhaps all-time favorite. I have used that as a sermon illustration before, and it is brilliant. So those are probably my best two.
And it couldn't have happened to a better person. Oh, man. That's great. Totally. Well, hey, let's shift gears real quick. We're going to talk about church and ministry, but it's rare to have somebody like you that has been in both worlds. So we got to geek out for a second. I'm going to ask a question, Dad, then I'll pass it. You can ask. Tell us, everybody wants to know, what is it like hitting a major league professional fastball? Take us behind the scenes on that.
Man, to be honest, hitting the fastball was not it was actually not my weakness. That was one of the things I could do. It was kind of I had the mentality, the harder he throws, the farther it goes. If I just,
which is the hardest? Take us behind the curtain.
Like the hardest fastball?
No, the hardest pitch to hit.
For me personally, it was either a guy with a really good breaking ball, or what I struggled with the most was a guy that had a really good changeup, because it looks like a fastball, and they speed your bat up, and you make contact, but it's rarely good contact because everything looks right. They keep the same arm speed, but you just can't really square it up. And so, but yeah, I think the fastest fastball I squared up was Daniel Bard, 102, and I just, hit a line drive right back up the middle. So for me, the heater wasn't the hard part, but when they started spinning stuff and changing speeds, that's where I struggled. So
Russell, I've always wondered this because I never played above like middle school, but I watch baseball so much, and I hear about all the
softball.
Yeah, I hear. Yeah, I was 5'7", decided basketball was a better route.
Totally. Wise
that didn't
choice.
work out either. I've always wondered when I listen to the commentators and whatnot talk about, all of the little tiny minutia things you can do, almost as if when that 95 or 90 mile per hour pitch is coming at you, you have the ability to do it. Would you say that that's more just, it comes naturally, or is it something you're actually like processing in your mind while that ball is coming right at you?
It's both. There's some guys that just have a very natural instinct for that, but there's also things like anytime, like if I were to put y'all in the box with a guy that throws 98 right now, it would be overwhelming. But if you did it every day, eventually it would start to look normal. And that was the thing, is you start building things. Like I would go stand in on guys' bullpens, and so much of it is, yes, you need to have a quick bat, and yes, you need to have a good swing plane. But if you just do things like getting ready to hit on time, if you start your load early and get into a good hitting position and do all those little things, believe it or not, you set yourself up well to be able to make consistent contact. The hard part is the higher you go, hitters start to really almost, I always called it hunting pitches. They're not guessing, but at that level, like you can't go in facing a Tyler Glasnow from the Rays that throws 100 and has just a devastating 12-6 breaking ball. You go up there and you sit on one or the other. And so you go, hey, I'm gearing up for the heater. And I know if he throws it in this spot, I'm going to take 3 aggressive hacks and I'm going to tee off on it. Sure, when you get to 2 strikes, some guys shorten up and try to put the ball in play. But you also go in knowing if he throws 2 hammer breaking balls, I'm just going to go like this and tip my hat and reassess when I get to 2 strikes. Same thing on the opposite. You go up sitting on a breaking ball. That's why when you see guys, that you see a guy throw a really good breaking ball and some guy hits it to the moon, and you're like, how did he hit that? It's because he was sitting on it. They know. Or flashback to Pujols when he hit that ball that hasn't landed yet against the Astros. Lidge throws the slider in the dirt and he looks silly, but then the next pitch is the same pitch, but he hung it and he hits it to the moon. It's because he was sitting on that pitch, but he finally got it in that location and he just destroyed it. So it's it definitely, you learn things like, and honestly, that I didn't learn fast enough because that's part of why I only lasted so long. So
that's cool, Dad. Go for it.
So I too have loved Altuve for years, but what makes him, he reminds me of Spud Webb back in the Atlanta Hawks, who was 5'6" and can do some amazing dunks. And so, what makes him be able to be such a dynamic power hitter at his size? You had it up and close. What was it about him?
It's interesting. He didn't really develop that until because he didn't hit for a whole lot of power in the minor leagues. He was kind of more of a leadoff guy that would get on base and would steal bases, and he'd hit doubles and he'd hit the ball hard. But that's something that he's really developed as he's gotten older. And I without talking to him personally, I would guess probably 2 of the things that he's gotten really a lot better at is really sitting on pitches. And when you get him, he's really explosive. He's a good athlete. He's got quick hands. And those guys figure out, the whole key with hitting is the longer you can keep your bat on plane with the ball, you give yourself the best chance of success. So it's almost like you watch the slow motion swings in the playoffs, and it almost looks like they're uppercutting a little bit. But really what they're doing is they're trying to keep their bat on plane with the ball as long as they can. And what happens is you create leverage. It's amazing the evolution of technology and science, behind things. You probably, if you spent any time as a kid, you probably heard the phrase, don't wrap the bat, right? Don't wrap the bat behind your head. We were all taught that. Biggest lie in the history of baseball. Look at the Major League Baseball logo. It's like this. And now there's a difference in, like, this is genuinely wrapping the bat, but a lot of hitters nowadays, they're teaching this technique where they load their hands into this. It's like a power position. And what it does is it creates torque and leverage. So guys that are like Altuve that are not that big, now all of a sudden the bat is creating this whip-like effect, and it's almost working for you without you having to be that strong. And so there's all sorts of those things, the evolution of strength and conditioning and all of that, where they're able to hit for a lot more power than they really might suggest themselves just on sheer size or stature. So,
hey, one more question, Joseph.
Go for it.
Real quick. So as somebody at your level, to watch Bo Jackson catch a ball right where he caught it, one bounce into his hand and yank that sucker all the way to home base. Is that even impressive to somebody like you who's seen all that stuff? Is that impressive to a major leaguer?
Oh, totally. I mean, there's some guys like that, the Mike Trouts, the Bo Jacksons, the guys that are just freak physical specimens. There's things that they do that, are on a whole nother level. There's a lot of more guys in the big leagues that are like Altuve than there are like Bo Jackson, but that's what makes, the Josh Hamiltons, he was a freak. An absolute physical specimen. And just, the ball just sounded, and those are the ones you really marvel at. Because you walk by batting practice and you could close your eyes and just hear the difference in the sound coming off the bat. So yeah, there's certainly those guys. We used to laugh at those guys, not laugh at them, but just say it must be nice to, have this, freakish tools, that are off the charts, because the rest of us have good enough tools, but had to really work to develop them and hone them to make yourself great.
I've watched that play over and over, and every time I just marvel. Unbelievable athletic ability.
Yeah, he's a specimen.
Russell, last question before we switch topics. In short, what's the difference between a good level college player and then boom, that next jump to the minors or even the majors? What is it? Like, in short, what's is it? Is it because baseball is one of those, NBA, you could jump in immediately from high school. Football, baseball, it takes development. Even watching Derek Jeter, it took him a while. What's the biggest difference? I know not everybody has that ability you're talking about. A lot of guys get there eventually. How would you describe that?
There's some of it that is learning to hone your natural skills and crafts. But I think the biggest thing in baseball, and I think this transcends sports, is the ability to handle failure. That's, baseball, every sport, but especially baseball, you're talking about you're the best that ever played as a hitter and you only succeed 3 out of 10 times. If you only preach good sermons 3 out of 10 times, I don't know if that's a thriving church, or, a lawyer that only executes 3 out of 10 deals. You're a doctor. You only accurately diagnose 3 out. It's just, you're not only not any good, you're probably losing your job, And so, just the ability to handle that. That was probably one of my biggest shortcomings, is I placed so much pressure on myself and just wasn't able to, ride the emotional roller coaster like some can. My buddy Josh Donaldson was my college teammate and roommate, and he was the kind of guy that when he struck out, he's going back to the dugout. Most of us are going, darn it, I missed it, darn it, and he's going back to the dugout going, I hope he throws me that pitch again, because I'm going to hit it out. Like, that's just his mentality. It was this confidence and swagger. And, I know as a Christian, that's a hard line to walk, because we're called to walk in humility, but you also have this inherent confidence that I think is important to be successful at that high level. So,
I want to ask one more question.
Go for it. Wait, we're just eating all this up, man.
I love it.
Speaking of confidence,
Yeah.
if you're taking your at bat and you stare out and you see the glorious stash of Spencer Strider and the way he stands on the mound, and you know he can throw the heat, what are you thinking? Well, just what are your thoughts on Spencer Strider? Because I love him.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that's so great about baseball is you see more and more of that, and you just learn it kind of becomes a part of the culture. So, just as far as the stash goes, but yeah, he's got some nasty stuff. And that's what's scary about the game is, I mean, now, like for pitchers, if you're a righty and you don't throw 96, 97, even as a starter, like, you better have 2+ pitches, to go with it. I mean, it's just crazy how, I mean, I remember when I played, guys still threw hard, but I remember guys that threw 95 or above still stood out. Now, I mean, everybody does, it's just, I mean, it's crazy how special some of these arms and some of the talent is. So, but yeah, it's all of that part is, what guys become known for, the Brian Wilson beard back in the day, and all of those things. That's just part of what makes baseball culture so fun and unique. And that's the biggest thing I miss. I don't miss the pressure. I don't miss the playing days, but the camaraderie, both on your own team. And I mean, just having some of my favorite things were going to games on the road and going to dinner with buddies, on the other team and hanging out with them. And that's just the special part of sports that you miss when you're done playing. So
that's cool. And just as sports fans, it's cool hearing somebody that was at that level in the detail, being an expert in that, and just hearing the way you view it and see it. That's cool. We could talk about it all day, but let's talk about something else that we're passionate about. That's pastoring. And just to give our audience a little perspective, each of you, in a different way, I would say, or maybe the church or the situation you went into, in some form or fashion, was a revitalization. When we use that word revitalization, we mean going into a church that needs revitalizing. Maybe not all the way, but at different levels. I know, Dad, when you got to Charlotte Road, y'all took about 3 years to really recreate the culture, and then you've revitalized the services, everything from the building. Adam, you guys did a renovation to your sanctuary, but ministerially and pastorally, it's a revitalization. And Russell, coming to a church after COVID and everything that your church kind of went through, I wanted to talk for a minute about what are some of the challenges and victories of revitalizing a church. So maybe you're out there, if you're a pastor or you're in ministry, or even if you go to a church and your church has revitalized before. So we're just going to land the plane on this topic and give us some room for discussion. And Russell, I'll start with you, and then Dad, I'll come your way. But Russell, my first question is, what are some challenges and victories of revitalizing a church?
I think revitalizing a church is perhaps the hardest thing to do in ministry. I've talked to my parents a lot. I think planting as a whole, in some ways, is a whole lot easier, just because you're, at least as far as the culture and the all of those things, because you're starting from scratch. On the what's going to pay the light bill, sure, revitalization probably feels a little bit safer because you know what you're generally working with and not working with. But I think the biggest thing is, we all know that in every church, there's things that are held near and dear. And so navigating those landmines, if you will, just to understand, like, hey, what is something that we know we need to change, but maybe doing it right away is not the wisest play. And what are the things that we have to change right now, no matter what the fallout is, because this is just something that has to be done. And then what are the things that you maybe change after a few months and shift in a new direction? Just the discernment for that. It just has come with a lot of conversations and prayer, and really just our church is one of the most friendly places on the planet. I think I challenge people all the time, like, if you come visit in our church, I don't think you could not be greeted. And I know a lot of churches don't necessarily do that very well, but I think one of the things our churches has struggled with over the years is going out, engaging in the community, like really not just coming and listening and learning, but like having conversations with non-believers and engaging people that don't know Jesus. And so I think that's where God's sovereignty kind of went before us, because I believe that is, my primary gifting, more so than preaching, is the evangelism piece. And so that those are just been a brief snapshot of some of the challenges, is just kind of continuing to shift the church with, like any church, just continue to focus outward, because we all get comfortable as humans. victories, like seeing people's lives change, going from a situation where I don't know if the church had any baptisms, for really 2, 3, 4 years, maybe, and then seeing how we've had, 26, 27, 28, somewhere in there over the last year, seeing 70 something new church members over the last year when we were only averaging 70 in spring of 21. Just seeing those lives changed. I mean, that's what it's all about. I'll never forget this Easter. Easter of 2021, this is before we were called here. Our attendance was 92 total people. That was kids, youth, students, everybody. Easter of 2022, we had 375. So
Wow.
just turning around and seeing our deacons pulling out chairs. I broke down. I mean, it just was seeing what God, just knowing the fight and the blood, sweat, and tears. I know these guys know that. There's nothing like it. So it's been simultaneously the hardest thing I've ever done, but also the most rewarding thing I've ever done. So
that's awesome. Dad, you want to follow that?
Yeah, there's so many aspects to doing revitalization, as it is just in pastoring in general. But one of the things I think is most important for somebody who's listening, who's just getting ready to get engaged, is be patient. Be careful when you hear other people's stories, because every story is different, and your story as a pastor will be different. And so go in it with patience, and be creative, because when you're going into a church that's small, that has a small budget, you got to be very creative and very loving. Just love on the people. What I have learned is people don't mind change. What they kick back is how you change them.
Yeah.
And so if you go in with force, you're going to have a fight on your hands. And then also I think there's some wisdom in timing, what to do, when to do it. And so when we're talking about patience, it's even patience with yourself on what to tackle first. And all these things that that I'm talking about, it's true in any church, no matter what size you're at. So we all really face the same challenges, the internal and the external. And so those are a couple just of things that I think is very important. Is be creative. If you're doing some revitalization, be careful of the timing, and pray, be patient. And let me just share this real quick. The victories, man, they are sweet. They are sweet. When you are able to come side by side with individuals that say, hey, look, we have decided not to throw in the white towel. We're going to continue on. We're going to press on, and we're not going to close. And then when you see things turn around, and you see people, and you see young families, and you see children everywhere. I'm giving you just a description of what's going on at our church. When you see children everywhere, and now we've got problems because our building's too small and there's no place to park. There's no pride in that. You know what that is? That's joy and excitement, because now we're battling things that we wouldn't even dreamed about battling, 6 years ago. And so to watch people that decided to fight, and to see them smile and excited, and to say, hey, look, there's people all around me I don't know. It's always worth the difficult journey. And so if you're not sure, be patient. Remember, it's not your church, it's God's church. It's not your ministry, it's God's ministry. He will empower you to his calling. You just be patient, let God lead you, keep your head down, and be obedient. He will see you through.
That's good. That's good. Adam, you want to follow that up?
Yeah, I'll just kind of repeat what these guys have said, and I agree with everything they said. And I would use the word pace when it comes to leading change in particular. Obviously, if people are opposing things that you're bringing up or trying to point out, you've got to think about that. And like Joe said, kind of pick your battles and know what time to do what. But there's also, and I've experienced this here at our church, there's a sense in which you can get in dangerous waters if everyone agrees with all of the changes you're trying to lead and to make, because what ends up happening is you're changing too much. And no one's saying, why'd you do this? Why are we doing this? They're not questioning your leadership. They're not questioning your vision. It's just you have tried to do too much in too little time. People have not had the chance to sit and soak and even experience and acknowledge some of the changes that you've made and kind of realize those victories and those ways that God may have worked through them, because you're always pushing forward, pushing forward. That's a balance. And that's why I use that word pace. You've got to know when to kind of sit back. And just on a personal note, you've got to know your own resources with your energy, your spiritual life. Like I've got 3 small children and preaching twice a week. And like, most pastors, we're just busy in general. So if you're always initiating new things and starting new things and creating new teams or committees, whatever it is, you'll find yourself just spread so thin that you end up not doing anything really, really well. And you'll start signing up for things that you learn later. We often hear that phrase, the law of unintended consequences. If you try to start something or initiate something and you don't pass that off and delegate that to someone else, before you know it, you're doing everything. And if you try to do everything, the people will let you. So you got to pick and choose where those spots are and just kind of pace yourself. And that requires a lot of wisdom, introspection, and knowing your people.
Yep.
Very good. Russell, any final thoughts?
I mean, I would just echo all of that. It's just, it's taken a lot of prayer and I've just tried to acknowledge with both our lay leaders and with our team. I've just really appreciated our staff team because, coming out of the pandemic, things were already slow. And then, I come from a big, fast moving church, biggest church in the country. And so just acknowledging that with our team, like, hey gang, like I'm still getting adjusted to what the new pace is. And I know you're adjusting to me. And so just acknowledging that in our meetings and in committee meetings and kind of, speaking into that, just saying, hey, I think it's been helpful for people. And then just really appreciating and acknowledging, when people, do things great, whether it's the lay person that invites somebody new or staff member does something great, just trying to celebrate those things, I think has really helped our culture in a lot of ways. So I think that no one will ever complain about being overappreciated. It's whether they're a words of affirmation person or not, just trying to do those things, I think has been helpful this last year and some change for me as well. So.
Very cool. Well, I mean, I love the Zoom just because you meet different people in ministry, and now this gives us a platform to connect and just share. And so, man, that was a lot of good stuff. Well, Russell, we appreciate you coming on. We will definitely have you back on, and we can pick your brain a little bit more. Adam, hope you lick your wounds as the Bravo fans are recovering. And the Dallas Cowboys are going to keep rolling. Next week, we'll have Senior Pastor Griffin Gullidge with us to talk a little bit about the Southern Baptist Convention and pastoring. We hope you have a great day. See you later.